March 10, 1987, Sydenham, South London, outside a pub called the Golden Lion. At 9:40 p.m., a man walking through the car park finds a body lying near the driver's side of an isolated BMW. 37-year-old private investigator Daniel Morgan has been killed with a diamond brand axe, notes totaling £1,000 sitting undisturbed in his pocket. These details suggest a professional execution where robbery was never the motive. While the murder was a tragedy, the state-sanctioned concealment that followed became a 30-year institutional scandal. Daniel John Morgan was born in Singapore and raised in Monmouthshire, Wales. After studying agriculture and working in Denmark, he moved to London and founded Southern Investigations in 1984 with his partner, Jonathan Rees. He was a married father of two who lived a grounded, working-class life. His brother, Alistair, remembers him as a man who was happiest when his hands were busy, whether he was stripping down a car engine or building shelves. His daily work involved repossessions and serving court orders, but he had recently confided in friends like Brian Crush that he was dealing with police corruption and didn't know who to trust. By early 1987, Morgan was allegedly seeking a press outlet to expose a drugs network. The man who spent his career fixing mechanical things was killed just as he prepared to document a breakdown in the law. On the night he died, Morgan meets Jonathan Rees for a drink at the Golden Lion. Rees claims to leave at 9 p.m. 40 minutes later, Morgan's body is discovered just a few feet from his car. The police investigation reveals a premeditated attack. Strips of sticking plaster had been wrapped around the handle of the new axe, ensuring the killer could maintain a firm grip through multiple strikes. The case took a darker turn when Southern Investigations accountant Kevin Lennon came forward. He testified that Rees had previously bragged about his friends at the Catford police station, arranging for Morgan to be killed. Lennon provided a specific operational detail. Detective Sergeant Sid Fillery, a Catford officer, was already designated to replace Morgan as Rees's business partner once the murder was carried out. These testimonies imply the murder was a premeditated transfer of business interests, organized with the help of law enforcement. In the immediate aftermath, Detective Sergeant Sid Fillery, the man named as Morgan's intended replacement, was assigned to the murder squad. While operating inside the case, Fillery suppressed his ongoing unofficial employment at Southern Investigations, allowing him to monitor the evidence chain from the inside. In April 1987, the Metropolitan Police arrested 6 people, including Rees and Fillery. All were released without charge, and the investigation stalled. Shortly after, Fillery retired from the police on medical grounds and formally joined Jonathan Rees as a partner at Southern Investigations, taking the seat left vacant by Morgan's death. The Metropolitan Police eased their own administrative protocols to facilitate Fillery's move into the private sector, effectively shielding a criminal enterprise from prosecution. In the years following the murder, Southern Investigations became an illicit intelligence exchange. Rees and Fillery used blagging and bribery to harvest confidential data from the state, gathering bank records and police national computer details for their clients. They sold this illegally obtained intelligence directly to Fleet Street. The news of the world became their primary customer, paying thousands of pounds for access to Southern's network of corrupt contacts. This unholy alliance between the firm and the press was described by a senior police source as the maternity ward where the dark arts were born. The practices developed at Southern Investigations, left unchecked after Morgan's death, provided the template for the phonehacking scandal that eventually collapsed a national newspaper. Daniel's brother, Alistair Morgan, began a 30-year campaign to force the state to acknowledge the systemic rot that prevented his brother's killers from facing trial. The coming years would see £50 million spent across 5 failed investigations, where lead detectives were hacked and sensitive files were leaked directly from the commissioner's office. This is a story where the media, organized crime, and the police collide. On March 10, 1987, a 37-year-old private investigator named Daniel Morgan was found dead in the car park of the Golden Lion pub. He had been struck in the head with an axe. Suspicion immediately turned toward Morgan's own business partner, Jonathan Rees, and a tight-knit network of corrupt police officers associated with their private detective agency. The motive appeared clear: In the days before his death, Morgan confided in friends that he was on the verge of taking evidence of extensive police corruption to the national press. But despite a clear motive, an obvious pool of suspects, and decades of inquiries, no one went to prison. The final attempted prosecution collapsed entirely in 2011. The story of Daniel Morgan defies the conventions of a standard mystery. The identity of the primary suspects has been known since the beginning. This is an autopsy of the most expensive unsolved murder in British history, and a detailed look at how a system designed to seek justice can be engineered to prevent it. This timeline maps 5 major investigations over 20 years, as costs aggressively pushed past £30 million. Looking closer, a pattern emerges. Courts deemed evidence unreliable, detectives coached witnesses, and the entire structure crumbled during the 2011 trial before a jury could even consider charges. The decision to officially abandon that final case fell to the Director of Public Prosecutions at the time, Keir Starmer. The Crown Prosecution Service could no longer guarantee a fair trial, largely because police handlers had failed to disclose critical information about their informants. In the wake of that collapse, the Metropolitan Police were forced into a rare public admission. They stated on the record that police corruption had been a debilitating factor in the failure of the very first investigation back in 1987. The failure to convict Daniel Morgan's killers was the direct result of active self-preservation by members of the police force who intentionally shielded the suspects. The police were only one half of this ecosystem. The murder suspects also forged a highly lucrative illegal alliance with the British tabloid press, most notably the News of the World. Following Morgan's death, his former partner Jonathan Rees built an empire of tabloid espionage. While actively under suspicion for murder, Rees earned upwards of £150,000 a year to illegally obtain confidential bank accounts, private phone records, and data on behalf of journalists. This relationship gave the suspects an incredibly effective early warning system. When a highly classified Metropolitan Police management meeting decided to launch a 5th covert murder inquiry in 2006, that operational secret was leaked directly to the murder suspects within 48 hours. The tactics escalated to active sabotage. News of the World executives authorized close, covert surveillance on David Cook, the lead detective. Men in unmarked, rented vans closely followed David Cook, his wife, and their 2 young children outside their Surrey home. Behind the scenes, the paper deployed notorious private investigator Glenn Mulcair to dig into the detective's life, illegally pulling Cook's private police records and joint bank account details to look for leverage. A major national newspaper weaponized its surveillance apparatus, helping murder suspects actively hunt the lead detective assigned to catch them. Facing mounting public pressure, Home Secretary Theresa May established the Daniel Morgan Independent Panel in 2013 to definitively review the handling of the case. It took 8 years for the panel to sift through the vast archives. They finally published their findings in a massive 1,200-page document in June 2021. The report's conclusion was devastating. It found the Metropolitan Police to be institutionally corrupt, determining that the force consistently prioritized protecting its own public image over confronting the corruption within its ranks. The fallout, however, was entirely bureaucratic. The Metropolitan Police issued formal apologies, and Commissioner Mark Rowley admitted the force had fobbed the family off with empty promises. The Morgan family eventually received a £2.25 million settlement, but no individual officers faced meaningful disciplinary action as a result of the panel's findings. When faced with an undeniable scandal, the state apparatus simply buries the outrage under decades of inquiries, reviews, and paperwork, waiting for the public to move on. Standing in stark contrast to that institutional indifference is Daniel's brother, Alastair Morgan. He spent more than 30 years waging a relentless, personal campaign to keep the case alive. The toll of that fight is difficult to quantify. Alastair spent his adult life fending off intimidation, navigating a maze of false promises from top officials, and watching successive governments come and go while the facts of his brother's death remained sealed in locked cabinets. Today, the car park of the Golden Lion pub remains quiet. 5 separate police inquiries, millions of pounds, and thousands of pages of reports have yielded exactly 0 convictions. The ultimate tragedy of Daniel Morgan's murder is what it proves about the systems designed to keep us safe. When forced to choose between delivering justice and protecting their own reputation, those institutions will almost always